Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Stoney.
Hello.
And Jason.
Hello, everyone.
And our well, I don't know. Do you want to introduce Miranda? I mean, she's here again. I mean, she has the microphone. So again, in case she wants to add her opinion, she can. But I didn't want to.
She's my chauffeur.
Right. I feel bad. I don't want. You're at the table.
I'm driving Miss Daisy here.
I love it.
I don't want to not, invite you to the conversation if you want to join us. But anyways, we just got this.
Another one of those let's record it moments. Where's the record button?
Right.
We
And
started talking about something.
And I feel like we should just go ahead. And I was like, let me just go ahead and set up the show so we can start having this conversation and it can actually be on the record this time instead of us having a whole conversation and then me not getting any of it. So anyways, how do you want to summarize what we were talking about a second ago into some sort of concise question?
I just think we were just talking about just the dynamics of relationships. I mean, really,
right.
And what does it take to have a successful relationship? That's probably the most important thing.
Right.
And whether or not you're willing to put that in.
Whether you're willing to put that energy in.
This kind of started because the conversation started because you made a joke about people always like to play matchmaker. How you were sitting at a restaurant or something.
I was at a tailgate.
Okay, I see.
And you're around lots of people, and of course they're always curious about the person that's single.
Right. Probably a little inebriated.
Why are you single? And of course I wasn't. I'd had a few beers, nothing big, because I'd eaten quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of people I were talking to had a lot more than a few beers.
I see.
And of course, their mouths are moving pretty fast and very loose, and so they're talking about all kind of things. So
probably a little more friendly than
they were. Oh, they were very friendly.
I feel like there's a deeper story here.
Were they in your business?
It was. They're always like, "Why are you single, Jason?" And what's going on. And of course, everybody wants to set you up and and all that. And I've kind of touched on this in some of the earlier podcasts that this topic has kind of just kind of appeared, but oftentimes I think about this. I really do because I look back and I'm a successful guy. I've got my head on my shoulders. I've got my own house. For all intents and purposes, would be considered a catch.
Right. Are you? Am I right that you're about to go into retirement, or was that?
No, I'm close.
Close. Okay.
I mean, I can actually retire from my job right now if I wanted to.
Right.
I'm at a point now that I work because I choose to work, not because I have to work.
Right.
But the alternative of sitting around your house and as much there's times that I like to sit at home. And just not have to go anywhere. There are times I would love to be able to sit outside of my house and drink a cup of coffee in the morning and not having to rush to go get in my get to my job. But for all intents and purposes, you would look at me and go, this person has got everything. They got their life together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an alcoholic. I don't do drugs. I don't. I'm frugal with my money. I'm not reckless when it comes to that. I don't.
You have a house.
I don't gamble, and I don't do all the markers that someone would look at and go, this person's stable. And,
I think we talked
together.
about this. We talked about this a while ago, or probably it feels like a little while ago. For all I know, it could be over a year ago. We talked about like red flags in a relationship.
Yeah,
that was a
what
great
it is.
episode.
You don't really have any red flags.
I mean, but I'm gonna tell you, I've had.
But you also said that you also don't feel like maybe putting the necessary energy into a relationship. That's a red flag.
Yeah. Well, no. But the thing, it'd be a red flag if he was actively pursuing people You know what I'm saying? Like it'd be a red flag if he was like if he's like in the scene, he's trying to you're trying to find somebody.
If I'm playing the game,
you're right,
and I'm just going out there to see what I can get
with no intentions
of ever committing,
then that would be a red flag.
Then that would to me more of a red flag than someone that's kind of upfront and honest about it.
You're right.
I got a quote. Quote, and we know I like my quotes.
You're right. You're right.
Bob Marley. If she's amazing, she won't be easy. If she's easy, she won't be amazing. If she's worth it, you won't give up. If you give up, you're not worthy. The truth is, everybody's going to hurt you. You just got to find the ones worth suffering for.
Mm-hmm. And so that was what before we got this episode started was I was about to really
kind of dive into this.
right because I feel like I do have something important to say because I feel like I have felt the same way. And in many aspects, I've even been in a relationship before and been like, man, I really don't want to put any more of myself into this, which is not a great feeling you want to have in a relationship. But you were saying how you're not really looking right now because again, like you're not in the place to put that kind of energy.
It's at one time it's different. You think the older you get, of course, your outlook on life changes. Right. I think differently than I was when I was 30 years old.
Right.
And now, unfortunately, the kind of I would call the negative parts of kind of being alone is you kind of really get settled in your ways.
You're right.
And you kind of want to do things and you want the freedom to be able to go do this and not have anything kind of tying you down.
Yeah.
Which inevitably in any sort of relationship, that changes.
Right.
Because you now have to consider that other person in all those decisions that you make. And it's just been a long time. It's not like I haven't dated. I've dated some very wonderful ladies out there that I think very highly of. And I have nothing bad to say about them. I've also dated some squirrels out there, okay?
I've never heard the term squirrel. That's good.
But, I mean, look.
Just a little rascal.
You don't care to name them, do you? What's their names?
I'm not going to go there. I'm just not going to go there. We don't tattle and tell, all that. No.
But the thing I was going to say was, but I think the way I feel like I was connecting with you in some way was, you said, you kind of touched on for a second was, is you're like, if you were to get in a relation with somebody, it would have to be a really special kind of person.
Oh, definitely.
And I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about because I was the same way. There was a point in time in my life where I was like, I don't have the energy because I'm too busy with work. I'm too busy with all my goals and aspirations for me to try and focus on putting the energy required into a relationship. But I, again, never said never though. I was like, but if there's someone that's going to come along that really makes me go, man, I really want to put the work into this, I will. And that happened or happens, to people. But I feel like that's what I'm saying is like if there's someone that comes along where you're like, man, this person's really special, and I really feel like I'm connecting with this person, and I could see myself stepping up and really putting in that effort into it. That's not something you're not saying I would never do that ever. Like I'm never going to.
No, I never say never. Right. I never close myself off.
Right.
There's always potential, but at this point in my life, there are certain things that I want in that person. And if that person doesn't have that or doesn't want to share that with me, then, I can be your friend.
Yeah.
Not that I think badly of you, but for me to kind of step into an intimate relationship with someone,
right,
we're going to have to share some very things at the soul level.
That's the point. That's what people should be doing in the first place. And when you don't do that, you get cheap. When you get cheap, you don't get a good foundation. When you don't have a good foundation, the shit's going to hit the fan and it's going to fall down all around you.
Well, let's be honest. A lot of people get involved in relationships. I think it's different for men and for women. And Miranda can probably kick in on the female side. What men are looking for in women and what women are looking at men for, and for guys, as we know, we're all visual. Okay. Whether we want to admit it or not. I mean, if we go into a room of if you have a man walked into a room with 35 women in that room, I don't know any of them. And I immediately go with my instinct of what I'm going to be attracted to. It's what you're attracted to.
Right.
What that female looks like. I go, wow, she's beautiful. That's what you're going to go toward. then after a while, once that kind of wears off, then there's some other things kick in. Now,
more important things.
When the relationship is solely upon physical looks, then that's where a lot of guys get themselves in trouble because it always turns out bad.
I think everyone's looking for companionship in some capacity, but I think that they try and find that in the wrong way. Where they're going for this kind of physical attraction. They're going for something like
there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, right. But
there's nothing wrong with that.
But a lot
it's
of it's
natural.
that kind of like that temporary feeling of like short-term satisfaction and like not like long-term gratification. In that
for a man, let's be honest. Look, for a man,
right.
it's immediately it's lust. Okay,
Well,
I mean that's
that's
what draws us. That's the kind of the natural evolutionary instincts in every man.
Right, but at a certain point,
after a while, though, that's what I'm saying. That starts fading a little to the background. Then there are other things that start raising up. Going, okay, yeah, this person may have these physical characteristics that I find very appealing, but now this other side is coming out that I'm like, I don't know if I want to deal with this. So a lot of people kind of get themselves caught. So what happens is they get involved in these relationships, what I call in the lustful stage of a relationship, and then realize I have nothing else in common with this person beyond that. And we all know eventually that wears off.
Right.
And as soon as that wears off, what do I have binding myself to this person?
Yeah.
That's where I think the trouble comes in with a lot of relationships today, and now it's kind of starting to change now. With I think I saw the latest stat. It was more women actually file for divorce than men. So
you have to start from the beginning, and the beginning is the hunt. And women hunt differently than men. Okay, first off, you need to look at how women hunt for a man. That's the real basic thing that you need to look at. How do women do it? First thing is, I run a couple of clubs, nightclubs, different kind of clubs and stuff. Have you ever actually been into a female restroom in a restaurant or a club or something like that? There's couches, there's TVs, there's communication devices, okay? So there is a network across the country, and I believe it's worldwide, that women can type in men's names and information, and their faces appear on the TVs. They're sitting on the couches. They're talking. Women don't go to the bathroom by themselves.
No, they all go with
they're
groups.
Comparing information, and it's this information. Guys go out there, and they're just slinging it around, trying to get whatever they can. The game and the hunt is differently. Women hunt differently than men. And information is the most important thing. You don't believe me? Start dating a new woman and watch how much information she can gather on you in just 2 or 3 months. Okay? This should have been Miss FBI here. Okay?
Let me check
Heidi
this
Doctor
dude out.
was over here pulling shit back off of my Facebook page from 15 years ago going, what did you mean by that? What was this? What was you thinking here? And I'm like, I just post stuff to be funny. It's not really life relevant. But she spent the time to actually go back and look at every picture.
Well, 90% of your posts are about whiskey and things, and I don't drink. So it's like, okay, and someone tells you they don't drink, but 90% of their Facebook is all about drinking. You're like, okay, there's something incongruent here.
Now, okay, Miranda. So, tell me a little bit about how women talk about how the woman views this whole thing we call relationships.
Well, I don't know if I'm necessarily the best spokesperson for this, but I think that from what I have observed in my years, that very often when people start a relationship, they're not looking at it from a long-term perspective. They're looking at it with short-term goals in mind, and they don't establish the right foundation for whatever that relationship might be. And then they're not honest when the bloom is off the rose. And they stay in a relationship a lot longer than what they would normally do because they're they want to avoid confrontation. And so I think that you have a lot of people that are unhappy because, it's just like life gets in the way. You've got kids, you've got this, you've got that. And I think that's why there's, so much people that fool around or do different things because they never made those commitments in the first place. I think that a lot of women go into a relationship looking for a partner, and a lot of men go into a relationship. They might think on the outside that they want a partner, or they might tell the woman that, but they really just want sex. And so, it's, again, they're not coming together on the same page right off the bat. Now, there's women that's all they want is a physical relationship as well, but I think that proportionately, it's probably less so. And I think that women are probably a little more likely to fall in love with the person and not just how they look. Although, it's like when you talk to a lot of younger people.
Which is a good thing for me.
When you talk to a lot of younger people, it's only about how somebody looks. They don't ask any deep questions. Whereas the older somebody gets, I think the more likely that they're sitting down and they're asking some deep questions. They're asking those tough thoughts that might be uncomfortable, but you want to know. It's like, when you start, when you leave a relationship and you're thrown back out into the dating world, when you go on these dates with somebody, usually within an hour or two, if you've got any compatibility at all. Because
that's what I was going to say. Was there if you can have dinner with somebody and like enjoy a conversation, and even enjoy some of the silence and not feel uncomfortable or awkward, I think that's also like a pretty big deciding factor, or an idea of comfortability, because I think that's once like all the dust settles and you're just in like your daily life, or you're just trying to figure out something to do on an afternoon. If you can't just like sit down and enjoy having conversation or not having conversation, and just being in each other's presence and being comfortable and just being able to just have that kind of moment together, then that's been my gauge.
And I think that's hard for a lot of people.
Right.
I think that, I know that, when I got back out into the dating world after my divorce, it was bizarre. It really was.
Yeah.
And everybody online the world they're lying about something. It was just a matter of figuring out what. I think every man lied about his height by at least 2 inches. It was literally, I'm tall, I'm 5'8", and I had in my thing, I'm 5'8", I want somebody that's taller than me. And I would have these guys that said that they were, 5'11" and 6 feet tall, and I show up and I'm taller than them. I'm like, okay, and what world are you? Or what world are you 6 feet tall? I think that there's just a lot of dishonesty, but that comes right from people are dishonest with themselves.
Yeah.
It's how can you hope that somebody else likes you when you don't like yourself?
Right.
I think that's a huge thing. A lot of people really do not like being alone. A lot of people don't, and there's ways of being single, and a lot. I hate to say it, but a lot of guys cannot be single and live a healthy lifestyle. Oftentimes I've seen guys that are single. They're out carousing. They're drinking all the time. It's just this nonstop.
It's a frat party.
It's a frat party instead of just living life that you would normally live, say if you were with somebody. I can do that as a single person. It doesn't, but my life doesn't change whether I'm single or I'm dating somebody, because I'm very comfortable in my own skin and I can sit and be by myself, so it doesn't bother me. But yeah, it's but as I said, there are also there's kind of a fine line you got to walk, because you can get a little bitter. Mm-hmm. You can get a little bitter after a while, and especially that what I call the pitfalls of being single is you don't have anybody.
Yeah.
When I was down with my back, man, it was just me and four walls at my house.
Right.
I was walking on my hands and knees at home in pain. Mm-hmm. I had nobody to help me.
Yeah.
None. So, while some people may look at the single life as being this, and believe me, I get it all the time. Like, they kind of live their life through me. Like they think I'm this party guy and out there, doing this and doing that. I said, no, my life's pretty boring, actually. But it does comes with some pitfalls. It does. And you are alone. And I have to, kind of deal with the situation as I get older.
Right.
What does that mean for me?
I think also, I wouldn't be surprised. There's like a level of jadedness in a way too, where you kind of become a little bit like, I don't know, like you're saying, a little stuck in your ways and some.
Well, you say things that maybe if you were a little bit more aware of the dynamics of relationships, that maybe, I'm kind of free to say, but maybe
right.
people that are dating somebody couldn't say that.
Of course.
I get that. Yeah. And then sometimes I got to bite my tongue and just got to, okay.
Well, when you're in a relationship, you're constantly compromising. And some people, when they're single, enjoy their single life and they don't want to compromise, especially if you've been single for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I said. Sometimes it's like I mentioned in the pre-show, I have to be honest with myself that, I have to, do I want to invest the kind of energy into a relationship to make it work? Am I willing to do that?
Yeah.
And if I can't say 100% yes, then it's best for me not to even date. I'll be your friend. We'll probably have a great time. But I don't want to get intimate with that person unless I'm willing to put that kind of work into it, because all it is going to end in heartbreak.
You're right.
It just will.
And I think
I've been around it long enough. I've seen it. It's happened to me.
I think that's commendable in some regard, because it is. I mean, that's a guy. I think it's better that you can have that honesty with yourself than to get in the messiness of trying to pretend like everything's okay when it's really not. It's really not. Yeah.
No, I mean,
but at the same time, like I think I like the fact you also have an open mind to where you're never going to say never.
No doubt. And I'm not anti-marriage. Right. I don't come from a background of a divorced family. I had a very good childhood. I kind of liken my childhood in many ways to like Leave It to Beaver. I hate to say it that way. I mean, it's kind of cliche, but I had a very good childhood. But it was something with me, I remember there was a girl I dated probably back when I was probably your age, Ian, that I had dated in college and even after college when I had started my current job. And I really thought probably I would end up, because that's about the time when people at my kind of age were starting to get married and doing their thing. And it didn't work out for me because she became so toxic that I had to get away from it. It was just like, okay, I'm just tired of this, and it kind of burnt me out a little bit. And I went years without dating anybody. I didn't want to be around. I just didn't want to date. I didn't want to go into that world.
Right.
And eventually you kind of, things, and then some others came into but there's probably one girl that I did meet. I think back on it now that if I was been in a better place, I probably would have married her. And she probably would have made a very good wife for me. I do run across her now. Okay. She's married with children.
Okay.
And, but she probably would have been a very good partner for me. But, I'm a firm believer in the divine hand. There are things that you're, the good Lord doesn't put in your, it says, that's not for you.
Right.
I have other things I need you to do.
Right.
And but yeah, it's about that willingness and that compromising to do it. And the older you get, the harder it gets. And it's one of the things I've noticed as the years have gone by. It's just, I just like sometimes just going home to my house and it's quiet and I don't have to deal with anything. And it's like, if I want to go get something to eat, I just go get something to eat. And, I'm not dealing with all the other stuff, but, I'm also missing out though on all the joys that being with somebody brings with you. And I've experienced both, and I understand those joys. I mean, it's it can be quite incredible. There's nothing like having a companion that has your back, because this world is hard. And if you don't have anybody, it's just you.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just kind of it's a mixed bag. Kind of
to talk about like the interesting thing about a relationship, at least for Mallory and myself, is that we're opposites in I think a few key ways that I think really help us out. She is very much a person that wants to get out of the house and do things, and I'm a person that likes to stay in the house. And so there's a lot of times where I've noticed in our relationship specifically that she has helped push me to like go do more activities and go out and about and things that I probably would have never done myself personally, but she's pushed me to do, and I have been very thankful for it afterwards. Like, man, I don't think I would have gone out and done this activity or gone to this show or done this thing, whatever. But because you were the one to really push us to do this and really encourage me to like help or to plan this and help do it, I'm very appreciative of that. And so it's interesting to see the dynamics in each relationship and it being differently because everyone is different. And I think it's interesting to see how there's been other relationships I've had where it was very much we were kind of the same people, and I think it was not good for me. And so I think it specifically in with Mallory and I think it's a good little dynamic duo. But
I think social media has also played a part in I would think the state of relationships today. That's why so many.
I think it puts an unhealthy expectation
Oh,
on what
I agree
a relationship
totally.
should be. You know, it's like you look at any influencer on Instagram and it's all the, picture after picture of them, where their boyfriend is taking the picture of like them with their arm behind their back getting led off on, on a beach or, or whatever. And it's just like, that's not what relationships are really about. It's not about the 1 millisecond of a picture. There's a heck of a lot more to it. And, there's that old adage that opposites attract, but I think I think you have to find a good balance of having enough similarities that you've got things that you're common ground. And then, if there are some differences, that's what keeps it interesting.
Right.
Yeah, you have to have somebody that I'm a firm believer in that. You can't be too similar because then to me would be very kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
You need a little bit of something that kind of maybe pushes you. So if you're kind of an introvert, maybe be around an extrovert,
right,
to kind of drag you out of your shell a little bit, and then the extrovert needs the introvert to say, okay, you need to come in a little bit, kind of chill out for a while.
Does that remind you of anything, Stoney?
Yes, it does.
when we
and I would
first
like
started...
to make a point to you, Jason. Keep that in mind. Because something's coming your way.
Oh, no.
Keep that in mind because something's coming.
When we first started dating, because I'm very much an introvert and Stoney never meets a stranger. So I think that it was 2-3 months in, you were introducing me to everybody. And I put a moratorium for 2 months where I'm like, I'm not meeting anybody else for the next 2 months. Like, just stop.
Right.
It was overwhelming
Mm-hmm.
because,
Whenever we do something, we have to do 2 of it.
Yeah.
When we got engaged, the engagement was Miranda and I. But then we had to have a party for all the people to be involved in it. And luckily they were at the same place. And it was 2 very unique, awesome experiences. But,
And see, to piggyback off what you guys are saying, Mallory is the one to push us to go do events and do things like that and get me out the house. And I'm definitely the one that's more socializer, and I'm the one who's willing to just open up and talk to everybody and get involved in that way. And Mallory's not. She's like, I don't want to, or how do you know these people, or that kind of thing. So it's very interesting to see the dynamics of that, because the second that she gets me out of the house and we're doing something, she's like, why did I do that? Now that we're going to be here talking to these people for forever, and it's part of my mom's genes coming out, because my mom's the same way.
Well, it drives Miranda crazy. Everywhere I go, I'm going to know somebody, or I'm going to start a conversation up. We were at the bookstore, and she goes to find a book, and I'm sitting there drinking my coffee, and there's 2 people at the table next to me, and she comes back, and I'm talking to the 2 people. Of course, I'm using my dot card to share in the podcast with him.
Right.
And he pulls it up and says, oh, wow, this has been coming on my recommended listeners. And I'm like, yes. So we're making it. But it's like I can talk to anybody.
That's awesome. That's important, actually.
Yeah, it actually is, especially in what we do here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it shows confidence,
Mm-hmm.
and I think for the ladies, that's a huge thing. I would think for seeing a man, is confidence.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think,
Confidence,
Miranda?
but not a flirt, because it's very easy to cross that threshold where, it's like, because it's no fun to be anywhere with a man that is the social butterfly, that is flirting with everybody, or that, it's just like everybody's got a backstory with him. They're just like,
or
no.
arrogance.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think
That was what I was gonna say.
I think
Yeah.
you need. There is a line. I
Yeah.
when I think of confidence, I'm thinking of a healthy confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, confidence is the ability to be able to kind of project yourself a little bit, among your peers and or just the public in general. So
When you meet someone, there's a few things you have to take into consideration. You've got your mental checklist of your yays and your nays, the thing your hard yeses and your hard nos on what you are looking for. Then you have to see, okay, because they might check all the boxes, but they might have so much baggage that you don't want to get involved. So it's like, you've got your boxes, that whether your list, whether they tick the boxes. You've got your baggage meter. How much baggage do they have, and if you're willing to deal with that. And then you have your red flags, and you want to know if they've got more red flags than a 4th of July parade.
I'm a carry on and personal item kind of guy. That's all the bags I need.
But so you've got this trifecta going on, and they might fit into one of the categories and not the other two, or they might fit 2 and not the 3. And so it is so hard to find somebody that you can say yes to all 3 categories, because and especially the older you get, the less likely you are to want to put up with other people's baggage.
You're right.
Or you're just like, no.
Yeah. But see, like, I think that's also
I get it.
right. I
Trust
think
me.
that kind of mindset comes from a place of people that are like I think are preparing to have like a long-term relationship. I think there's a lot of people that I don't think have that kind of thing in mind, and they're just going into they just want to go into something that feels good or looks good or whatever, and then they get upset whenever it doesn't work out because they don't really understand why. And I think it's things like that they're not really considering of like how much of that. There's a lot more beneath the surface I don't think you're really understanding,
Well, when I meet somebody, and even when I met Miranda, when I met Jason, you kind of grew into it. 'Cause I met you when you were about.
I think
big.
we also we
Yeah.
re-met.
But even when I first meet somebody, you have to look at a certain criteria about it. I don't do anything short term.
Right.
I don't believe in the short term. Jason, the day you and I became friends, I made a decision that day. I had to look at you, evaluate, and say, do I want to be friends with this person 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now? And the day we called each other brother and friend, my expectation of that is one day we're going to be sitting watching the grandkids, smoking a cigar, having a
Cocktail,
a poo-poo coffee or
cocktail, whatever.
Yeah.
Kopi Luwak from the Volcanica Coffee Company.
That's right. Shout out to you, Volcanica.
Yeah.
And then the second criteria to that is how would you perform in the zombie apocalypse?
There you go.
Okay. And so that's the criteria on whether we're going to continue. Well, that was the same thing with Miranda. I looked at Miranda, and when we're sitting there, and I would 2 weeks before that, I was sitting at the friends that introduced us on their couch going, I give up. Screw this bullshit. I'm tired of this. I'm just going to be single for the rest of my life. 2 or 3 weeks later, I met Miranda.
Surprise.
And, when we're sitting there at the table, she's sitting on this pillar, and she's got her legs crossed and her arms folded, and she's kind of looking at me like,
Just checking you out.
I'm
Sizing
not
you
so
up.
sure.
It's like a computer scan going
And
on.
it wasn't actually until we got outside and we were talking, and that's when we really got to know each other. It was just one-on-one, and then I looked at, do I want to do this long term? How do I think this person's going to be in the zombie apocalypse?
I think you also asked the question of like, am I willing to put forth the work? Yeah.
And
Well, that's, I mean,
now when we first met, and we decided to hang out a little bit, Miranda said this is on a trial basis, that we're going to do this on a trial basis. And I'm still waiting to find out if we're on the trial basis or not. Because
put you on probation.
Yes, something.
Yeah, put you on probation.
I don't know that we've moved up out of that trial basis.
Didn't you
thing.
also say you had a very unique comment? I think whenever you first started to talk to Miranda about Birkenstocks, I think there was a very important rule about Birkenstocks. I remember that.
Well,
at least.
there was two red flags. What do you call it? Game enders.
Non-negotiables.
Non-negotiables.
Yeah, right.
Should have been in Brokeback Mountains. I mean, Birkenstocks. Or if I'd have had a big old goatee or facial hair,
There
she
you
wouldn't have
go.
dated me. So
I see.
Which was funny is because when we got talking about that, and she showed me a picture because he had this giant goatee like a week before we met, and he had cut it off. I was, oh, thank God, because you wouldn't have gotten a second date. And
I
was
said, that's a good thing because
about,
you weren't wearing Birkenstocks.
So I
then,
slid open the back of my door, and I've got one of those shoe holders that's full of Birkenstocks. I'm like, take your pick.
Yeah, there you go.
What color do you want, babe?
Oh man,
she has every color and pattern.
I'm gonna pose something to both of y'all since you got
Well, there's three of us here.
to all of y'all.
right.
Do you make a decision each and every day to love your significant other?
Yeah.
Because it is because it is a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
Well, technically, what most people don't understand is that when you fall in love with somebody, it's a chemical reaction and bonding in the brain that never goes away. Never goes away. What happens is over time, you pile so much shit and bullshit on top of it, you can't see it. And the only person that can remove that shit is the person who put it there. But you're always going to be in love with that person. We are God ordained and bound to be one person. That's it. But the chemical gets compacted by shit and big, just meanness and big things that keep getting piled on. And if you don't nurture that relationship and make the decision every day, you're just going to pile on it. One day you're going to go, I don't know why I'm in this.
Right.
And that's why even in long-term friendships, you really don't remember the bad stuff. You remember the good stuff. In relationships, you really kind of always want to tend to remember the good things and not the bad things. But it can get so bad that it destroys the relationship. But you're always going to be in love with that person. That can never go away. But you can get to a certain point where it's just not worth it anymore. They're not worth the hurt anymore, even though you have that feeling.
I've been there. I've talked about that on this show before, actually, when I moved away to Canada. But right now, to answer the question, yes, there. I can't say consciously that I've thought about that every day, but there are moments when specifically I feel like I know I'm getting on her nerves and she's getting on mine. That I know that we just need a chance to calm down or to kind of separate ourselves from whatever the conversation is that we're having or the frustration that's caused us to kind of, get at each other. But I always, once that tension has kind of left, it's always like whatever that was is not more important than each other's relationship for each other. And I think I still care for her more than whatever this situation is that we're in or this frustration that's coming on with her.
Your turn.
I don't know if I consciously think about it every
Well,
day.
I don't give you enough problems to make you make that decision every day.
Wait a second.
It's getting deep now.
Be careful. You're on record.
Maybe once a week. Do you have to make that decision once a week?
Remember, I know where you sleep.
I knew that was coming.
Oh, man.
Now, I don't know if it's something that I ever consciously think about, but I know that, when you look back at how other relationships have been, I was married for 26 years. That was a really long time.
Yeah.
So I knew, the last 6 years of that were absolutely miserable. So I knew that, when that was, it was over long before it was over.
Right.
And so when I was getting back into another relationship, I knew exactly what I didn't want.
Right.
And so it's just like you've just, I drawn this line in the sand of this is what I'm willing to do and this is what I'm not willing to do, or, and it's, you look for someone that is a partner, you don't look for someone you have to parent, you don't look for someone you have to babysit. You don't look for someone that, is, like I said, like a ticker take parade with all the red flags. Because life is short. And if you're unhappy, it makes that short life a lot harder. So it's like you have to try to do your best to find somebody that you resonate with and that you feel like you're working towards the same goals. And I think that, right off the bat, when we were talking about things, we had all these like weird coincidences, like all these cities that we lived. We were circling around each other for a long time, even though neither of us were in a position to ever, had we met, we weren't in a position to do anything. But like we knew some of the same people, it was just, there was just too many coincidences.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we had knowledge bases of stuff that regular people would never have. So it was like we resonated with each other. And it's hard to find someone you resonate with. It really, truly is, because, the physicality only goes so far. If you don't have that mental connection with somebody, the physicality is never going to last.
Yeah.
Yeah, you to me, you've got to be able to connect. That's important to me, the mental connection. To me, it all has to kind of flow. I mean, mental, it's physical, mental, spiritual. It's kind of all that for me, kind of wrapped up is, would have to kind of happen for me to kind of go there. But look, I'm not going to say I've been like perfect, because I know I've got my own faults and I've got my own quirks. And I'm sure the females that have been in my life probably would have some very choice things to say about me. Just what it is. And but it's as I said, overall, it really comes down to this idea of being honest with yourself. And if I'm not 100% can say yes to something, beware. Because maybe 90% it may look good, but that 10% is just going to become this tsunami crashing over you eventually. It just does. So yeah, it's I
saw a little blurb that Steve Harvey, of all people, had done. And it was something that has resonated with me for years. I've brought it up when I've talked to friends about different issues in their relationships, because I think a lot of women will get into a relationship, and when they get unhappy, they want to change the man. They'll be like, okay, this, you got to change this, you got to change that. And Steve Harvey has this little spiel, and you can find it on YouTube, where he says that men will only change for one woman, and that's it. And so if he hasn't changed for you, you're not that woman. So quit trying to flog a dead horse. Move on. Let him find the one. You find your one. And, it made a lot of sense. And he says it a lot more eloquently than what I said it. But it does make sense. I think in relationships, we spend a lot of time trying to fix the other person or changing the other person instead of appreciating what they bring to the table.
Yeah.
So what do I need to fix?
I'll give you a list.
There you go.
I would be very curious, a female from, maybe like 25. I'd be very curious what her perspective would be on the modern dating situation, because I do believe it's a lot different for people in that age category than for maybe people in our, where we're at.
Yeah.
There are some similarities, but I think the differences there, I'm sure, would probably be rather stark. I don't know what the world's like. I mean, Ian, you could probably, the thing is, really address that more than me, because I can only from my own. I remember how it was when I was, 25, 26, 27 years old. The world was a little different,
right?
Even then, for me, today, the younger females I've talked to is quite different from the way girls used to be.
Yeah.
And maybe you can speak on that a little bit.
For me, like I've been out of the game for a while, actually, and I don't think I understand. Even whenever I was in it, I don't think I fully understand, because I feel like I even have a different mindset than I think a lot of people in my own age range do. But I think a lot of it is kind of at least from the people I talk to, it's a lot of the same thing, is making sure you have the same, as long as you can make the person laugh and if you can hold a pretty decent conversation with them. But I think a lot more so now is belief system. Is like, because I'm also like I'm a pretty religious person in some regard. That was a big discussion, is, like what side of the party do you support, kind of, at least in the circles that I ran, kind of meant a lot. Is like, if we could hold the same sort of either religious beliefs or political understandings, is a big thing, because I may not really connect or jive with what you're supporting, and that's a big no for them. At least, like I said, from personal experience, but I'm not. The hard thing too is whenever I was the part that's kind of skewing me in a weird direction was whenever I was in my like early 20s or mid 20s, I was also doing a lot of musician stuff, and so a lot of times it was just kind of I was a bass player for a group, and so like a lot of times I feel like the people that would try to quote unquote connect, it was more so like they just wanted to get with a musician kind of thing, and it was a very short term thing. Mm-hmm. And I've never really been a short term person when it comes to a relationship or something more physical than that. I'm not one to just kind of throw that around and let that be something that guides me like that. So in those moments it felt very uncomfortable, because I was like, I'm not that kind of guy. And that's what I think you're wanting from me in a way, and then that was kind of an awkward
I think
point.
that most people that are in our age group grew up with the nuclear parent, the nuclear family kind of thing, and that's kind of what we have in our mindset of what we wanted for ourselves. I look at like my kids, my oldest kids. My son will be 24 in January, and my daughter's 22. And, my daughter has been with the same guy since grade 6. And that is the exception to the rule. They've had their life planned out since grade 6. Whereas, I look at all their friends that have been over to the house all these years, and their idea of a relationship seems a lot more fluid. Mm-hmm. And
definitely.
They're not looking at things long term. They're not looking for a nuclear family. Like they don't think it's a big deal to get drunk and to go off with somebody else. They're like, oh well, I was drunk.
And that's a big thing.
Not an excuse.
That's a big thing that shifted, I think, in the past handful of years, as opposed to what even for me when I was a teenager. Again, this also could just be like the location that we're at, in the U.S. But even for me, like even in just the time from when I was a teenager to when I was in my mid-20s, I feel like that changed a lot of like that whole fluidity in a relationship and not being held down by one person, all that kind of stuff. The hard thing for me too was also, again, I was very much a person that like I would like to start my own family, and I know that at the time I knew I was getting older, but like I had friends, and I had also, I quit beating on the bush. I had been with some girls that had kids before, and it was not a pleasant situation to try, and it was a lot more extra work to go through the other father, and because again I was also in my 20s, and it was just a lot of expectations, and it was hard for me to really see it long term, because there was a lot of stuff that was being imposed upon me that I felt like was unjust. Like there was a lot of things that were being asked of me, and I couldn't ask anything in return because of situations. And so that's what I'm saying. So for me, it was hard because like that was also a thing for me. I was like, I feel like I already have kind of a niche. The like, as you're saying before, or I think both Miranda and Jason had said before, like once you get older, you kind of have these like certain mindsets or niches that you kind of like, I want this out of a relationship, or I need this out of a relationship. And I've realized even as I was like getting into my 20s, I was like, man, I really would rather not be with somebody that probably already has a pre-existing family. Not to say never say never. So I never shut myself off to it, but I was also like, I'm going to be a little more leery towards that, because I had friends, and also myself kind of had been burned in the past by that. And I would like to have somebody that is going to be, loyal to me because I'm going to be loyal to them. I'm not going to be one to go sleep around. It's just not the kind of person that I am. And so it's like once I started to narrow myself down to that, I was like, man, I'm really kind of pigeonholing myself in my age bracket. If I'm being realistic, I can probably find someone that's significantly older than myself that, maybe has the same mindset that I do.
Were you looking for a cougar?
No, but what I'm saying is like the more and more people...
He wants a cougar.
The more and more people
they have money.
I mean...
They have money.
Hey, it's better than all the alien jokes.
I mean, you're right. You are right. But for me, the thing I was saying was the more and more I was looking into people in my age range that are probably college age or, or living their best life right now, I was like, that's not really the kind of...
Well, you have to know what you want. And I think that there's a special type of person that's willing to take on somebody else's kids.
You're right.
So because it's a lot.
And I quickly realized that I was okay with the kids. It was the other parts of the relationship that I was really quickly realizing.
I've dated both. I've dated women that didn't have children, and I've dated women that had multiple children, and there's definitely a difference. In dealing with that, and it's just the older you get, the chances are the lady's probably going to have children. There's very few women that are, especially down here where we're at, that's probably going to be childless by these ages. I mean, it's just the way it is. I've only known two girls that I've known that never really wanted children. They're just friends of mine.
Right.
That's just the life they chose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's that brings a whole different level of complexity.
Boy, yes, it does.
To a relationship because look, at the end of the day, you become second fiddle.
Right.
To with her and her children. That's just the natural thing,
and that wasn't to kind of speak on my own circumstance. That wasn't the part that because I knew that I never wanted to come between that, but the difficult part was the expectation that was put on me. How do you say this in the nicest way possible? I'm trying to, you know what I mean? Is there was a level of expectation that I had to meet this expectation.
No doubt.
And then whenever I tried to match that level of expectation from her, I was met with you can't do that. That the power dynamic of like I am the one who calls the shots. I'm the mother of these children. I have been in a relationship before, and I was like, okay, and that's and we were able to end it respectfully. But I was like, but that's not how I'm going to operate as well. So,
I would venture to say, that's a natural disposition. They're at the end of the day, I think they want. And I've got Miranda here, so please correct me.
Right.
But I think in many cases, I think the lady will say, "Yes, I kind of want that person that kind of stabilizing force to kind of help me with that."
Right.
But I've encountered resistance in my past when it came to those things, and
they want situational help.
Right.
It's basically
it's not.
what it is. They want help under certain rules, certain terms. And you have to decide whether you want to do that or not.
Exactly, and it's just, I mean, so that's what I'm saying. Just like Stoney, just like Stoney's saying,
it's basically, I don't want to go to the store by myself. I don't want to go do this by myself. But then you can't interfere here.
Right. It's just look, and that's just the way it is because that's her children,
of course,
and it's just kind of the way nature has kind of evolved to a degree.
And like I said, for me, it was never. In my circumstance, it was never the children. It was always between her and I, kind of thing. Right. It was like there was some expectations in a relationship aspect, and then whenever I was like, okay, well, if you're going to come with this, I'm going to also expect. What I'm saying? I'm just going to match the same sort of thing. It's like if all of these things are being asked of me, I will also ask them for you in return. And that was when the whole like, oh no, like I'm going to be able to do whatever I want, and you have to kind of obey by my rules. And so I was like, that's not healthy for me. And I'm like, I'm going to. So
I've always said the biggest threat to our country, our civilization, is the attack on the nuclear family.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is attributed to more social upheaval and the problems that come from that than probably anything else. It's a subtle thing that no one really wants.
It's not subtle anymore.
Well, it's subtle in a way in how it kind of manifests itself over time. So that's what I'm saying. There are a lot of things, the destabilizing part of that, kind of the failure of the nuclear family to kind of maintain that position that it once occupied in this country, has led to a lot of our issues today with, just name the social statistic.
We're destroying the family and we're destroying the kids. We're trying to hold on to adolescence way too long. A 12-year-old in Israel or another country is more mature than 25 to 28-year-olds here in America. We're creating wussies. We're not teaching our kids what they need to learn because we're destroying the family, and we're doing it openly. We're doing it with social media, who's creating a sense of lying, and I can be anybody that I want to be, and I'm entitled to this, and we are destroying our kids, and we're not teaching them, and now you're not letting the police teach them. You're not letting the teachers discipline them. And now we're expecting them to do it and put up with those things when we've already destroyed the family, because now you can't even discipline your kids. You can't spank them. You can't do anything to them without having all this hellfire come down on you for just trying to, but then we expect everybody else to do it, and they can't. So we have destroyed the nuclear family. There's nothing subtle about it. All you have to do is look at what's going on in our social media, on the advertisements on the TV and cable now. It's being actively destroyed because that's what's going to make America weak. When you had the nuclear family strong, America was the strongest nation in the world. Now we're not.
Yeah, I mean, we hate to say it. It's
there's nothing subtle about that.
I read something. I don't know. I came across this article. It may have been today, or yesterday. I'm scrolling and talking about where are the available marriageable men
working,
and I think
they're working.
Where they're at, but they're saying is the lack of what they call marriageable men that. And the gist of the article, I mean, they said it's the feminization of men that has now caused women to be very confused.
Well, there was something else that came out. Where are these marriageable men? They're in two places. They're on the job working, and they're in the friend zone where you put them while you went out and screwed that asshole.
Well, yeah, that's true. And I hate to say it, but, women have a lot to I put some of this in the corner because there are a lot of women that kind of, they attack the toxic masculinity, which that term just recently kind of came up. It seemed like men have always been masculine
because it's part of the destruction of the nuclear family, where you have a masculine man, a lady, and you create a family atmosphere where everybody works together to accomplish something. And now we're destroying that.
I think a bigger thing, at least with the generation I'm a part of, is that there are, I think there's been women for a long time that have a very specific set of rules that, they have their checklist of things they need for like a marriageable man. I think a hard part too is the fact that I think there's, at least in my friend group, there are men out there that are also doing the same thing. Like I said before, is that they are also coming with a checklist as well, instead of just, instead of, I think, like how it, I think, and I'm not, instead of like how it was in the past, where like a guy just would probably is just available and is like looking for someone, and that still is the case. I think that there are men that just are around and available and looking for probably somebody. But I think the men out there that are good candidates, I think, for marriage material, I think they're also now coming with a certain rigid rule set of like, if you're going to have, I'm going to have expectations for you. And I think that that's also kind of conflicting with, I think, the modern woman in some way of like, but I want to be able to do this. And then think that a lot of those men are being like, you can, but that's not going to be the person that I'm going to marry. You see what I'm saying? At least not right now. if you want to clean your act up, then because that's a lot of the guys I'm talking to. They're like, I will come into a relationship saying like, you can have your checklist of things you want from me, but I'm also going to come with my own selection of do's and don'ts. And a lot of times that's something that's going to be that I think that people don't want to be told what they can and can't do, but they want.
As I said, I do believe though that there's been a lot of the attack of the masculine man. Our culture. I mean, I hate to say, look at it. Seemed like every movie, all the culture is the men are nincompoops. They just are. They're weak. They're
They're
you
the
look
brunt
at
of every
all the
joke on
military
television
shows
right
now.
now.
Guess who are all the strong military? It's all women. I mean, every time I turn on TV, it's all these women characters. I'm sitting there going, huh?
Well, because it's become politically correct or politically acceptable to trash men. You know, that's because no one wants to make different demographics the brunt of a joke. It's A-okay to make a man because they're not going to complain.
No, yeah, well, you just kind of take it and you just roll with it. And I get that, but it comes to a point where you have to start calling it out. That's why you're starting to see people like Andrew Tate and these people that are basically saying, wait a minute, and he comes across as kind of a misogynistic type of guy, but the guy makes a lot of good points about the culture that we have basically have gotten so kind of far off on the other end that it's like, these other countries, they don't play that.
No, they don't.
They don't play that game. We in the West seem to kind of, which to me is a sign of decadence. That's where I think we are as a culture. I mean, it's not to go dive off into another topic, but I do believe that's a symptom of decadence when you've kind of lost those drives, those underlying things that kind of drive you to greatness. We've lost that.
It's that old. It's my favorite quote. Bad times create strong men. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. Weak men create strong times. Bad times. This is where we are back in America. We started this country off in a strong time. In a bad time, we created men that were willing to fight, women that were willing to fight and do what it took to make this country strong. And now the decadence is taking over. Rampant things, blood sport, some other things that I have some thoughts on. Now we're creating bad times, and out of this, we're going to have to create strong men again, and we're going to want those strong men back soon.
That kind of reminds me of a movie. I don't know if y'all remember that movie. It was called Fight Club.
Oh yeah,
we don't talk about Fight Club.
It's a great movie though. Yeah. I love it.
But to me, that was kind of a somehow a reaction to that person's perceived what was kind of going on around them. But yeah, I mean, I as I'm saying, I think there's a lot of blame to go around when it comes to why we are in this predicament with relationships. I think it's a whole host of things. I mean, you've got social media. I think there's unrealistic expectations of what a relationship is. The ability to actually love somebody, and I mean love is a verb. Mm-hmm. It's not a subject. So it requires action, which you do for somebody day in and day out. That's that's how you love someone. I think the attack of the masculine in men that have just basically had made men kind of retreat into a shell.
Well, it was very subtle at one time, but then you have entities like Vanguard and the CEO of BlackRock coming on TV and doing interviews saying, we're forcing this agenda on America. We are making it happen, and they're doing it, or we're going to pull their funds. That's what happened to Bud Light. The CEO of BlackRock came out and said, we forced Bud Light to do that, or we told them we are pulling their funding. And when you look at these companies who are making these decisions, and Miranda and I just found out today that Braun has made the same decision, they're making it against who their market is. Bud Light is not a market for the transgender community. I have nothing against people. Do what you want. In America, this is a free country. As long as you don't hurt somebody else, I don't give a shit what you do. But when a company comes in and says, we're going to spend all of this money to force an agenda, and this is the same country, I'll get it right, same company that spent $480 million to improve the Chinese army that's operating in America, we have a problem. And they are forcing it. They said, we are forcing these companies to do it. We forced Disney to do it. We forced
because it's always about money. Everything's about money.
Everything's about money. And I'll say it again, governments are only a puppet or a tool for the people with money, and that's what's happening in America today.
But my question, though, is, I think it's separate from what we're talking about relationships, but I would ask, what is the motivation of why?
But it's not separate from relationships, because that's what they're attacking. They're attacking the men. They're attacking the family. They're attacking the whole reason for getting together and have a relationship. So
I think it's all power.
Yes,
I don't think that.
But I understand. But
right.
what do you perceive? What is the ultimate goal here? I mean, if
to destroy America.
Okay, so why? To do what?
I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is that they have.
What's the end game?
Why?
The end game is what they've said: population control, one world government, one world bank. Okay, with a strong America, you ain't never doing that. So what they did is this is how Rome died, was from the inside. Rome didn't die from the outside. Rome died from the inside. America is not going to die from the outside. America is going to die from the inside, and they know this. And that's why they are spending trillions, billions, and trillions of dollars to destroy America from the inside. First way to do that. And if you look at what Hitler's agenda was, guns, family, religion, hospital, car industry, he took over them all. Guess what? That's what's happening in America today. That is the easiest way to weaken America, is to destroy the family. And you're back to, the fluidity and all of this of the genders. And now you're destroying the whole reason to date.
I hear what he's saying. But if I can interject, I don't think it's wholly all that. I think a lot of it is power and control. I think their end game is to be able to have power and control over everything through the guise of equality. They want everyone to feel like they're equal. They want to have everyone to feel like they're empowered to be able to say and do whatever they wish. But I think at the end of the day that I think it's all, that's all the guise. That's all some sort of disguise. And the real thing is just to be able to know that they have the power to go to be able to put their finger down and say, no, you can't do that. You have to do it our way.
I agree, but it's not equality anymore, because Ted Cruz did an interrogation of a federal government high person who asked them, she's the equity person, and he asked her, so it's okay, we're going to hire all of these people unless they're white, straight men. And there was a memo that he brought out and put it on camera and everything. We can't hire these people anymore. So it's not equality.
I know.
They're destroying equity.
Like I said, it's all the disguise of equality. It's not actual equality. That's what I'm saying. It's the same thing with when it comes to a lot of the gender stuff. It's
a shell game.
It
just distracts from something else that's going on.
It's not the. When I say disguise of equality, it's now my turn to be superior, is what I'm saying. It's like in the disguise of equality. It's like we're all going to pretend like everyone has the same power, all equality, but it's all but now it's my turn to oppress you.
I find it funny, though. These very same companies, though, are run by people that are probably fit the stereotype of type they're attacking.
But they don't care. They're trying to destroy America at its core so they can get away with their agenda. Their agenda is to make all the money.
I think we need to wrap this episode up, and I think that us talking about the destruction of America is not a great way to do that. I wholly don't think they're trying to destroy America. I think that they are, if I can, just to have a different opinion on the show, I really think they just want to be able to whenever it comes to companies, business, government, they want to be able to say, no, I want to do it my way because I have all the money and I have all the power. Now, whatever I don't know if their end game, I think that is the end goal. The end goal is to be able to put their foot down and say, no, we have the power, and it's whatever we say goes. And right now they're like, I think they're slowly now whether or not that is something as big in conspiracy theory as destroying all of America, I don't know. But I think for right now they want to, whenever it comes to brands, companies, people, they want to be able to say it's going to be this way and that's it. And then of course, they have all the money and power.
So if we're wrapping this show up, so I'm going to go wrap it back to our topic of relationships.
Right.
How can that get better?
I think that slowly but surely, I think that people are getting there. I think that people are starting to realize, at least in my circle, I could be wrong. I think that the country is divided on a lot of things. I think that people are finally starting to stand up and say, I don't want to believe like that, and I'm tired of being told that I have to. There's a lot of people in my friend group that feel that way, and there's a lot of people I feel like, at least in our probably hemisphere of the of the globe, that I think kind of feel that way, where they feel like I'm starting to have conversations with people that are like, people can do whatever they want, but I don't feel like I should be forced to make a decision or choose to do a thing that I don't feel like I should have to.
Well, we've commented before on Facebook listening to through our phones on what's going on.
Yeah.
I happened to turn it on. Look what the top post is.
Oh gosh, what does it say?
Well, okay. Go ahead and read that for us, Miranda.
It says, "Why does dating again suck so bad?"
There you go. Wow.
There's a lot of people that are, they're genuinely terrified of people that are recently divorced, especially, I can imagine ladies, having to kind of get back out in that world. They're terrified of it because they hated it to begin with.
Right.
That's why they latched on to somebody that they thought would be good, and kind of, okay, now I'm out of that. I have somebody, and now I'm good, and I'm not by myself.
I have a saying: dating after 50 is like going to the thrift store finding the least broken thing that doesn't smell.
Gosh, wow.
But and I use the analogy that when you're out there and you're dating. It's hard to find a trophy when you're fishing in a cesspool.
There you know.
Well, it's like anybody. But you start getting close to 50 years of age. There's a lot of baggage.
Yep.
You've accumulated as a person. There's a lot of There's a lot of joys. There's a lot of disappointments. There's a lot of betrayals. It's just it's kind of that we carry all that with us. And if you're lucky to kind of fight through that as a married couple and still kind of get to that point and survive, then you're lucky. But I'm going to tell you what, I know a lot of people have gotten divorced after 30 years of marriage.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all of a sudden the kids are gone. And it's
right.
like, I have nothing in common with this person anymore. I don't love this person anymore. We've been sleeping in separate beds. And it's like, and as someone who's single and now have seen that some of my friends that I've known since, that unfortunately have gone through this kind of stuff, it's sad. It's sad to see because I hate to see relationships fail like that. But unfortunately, it's
part of life.
It's part of life, and it hurts. So, but just to tell everybody, I'm not anti-relationship. I'm not anti-marriage. I'm always open to a person coming into my life that compliment. Yeah, I know. That compliments me.
Everyone likes to play matchmaker.
Everybody's trying to play matchmaker, but I also like being single too. So it's not that I'm out there looking per se, but if something stumbles my way and it works, we might go down that road.
Spoiler alert, that was the whole reason of this episode, was just to
I think it was all about Jason.
Yeah, no, I'm playing. I feel it was a great conversation. I feel like and I think that was, I'm glad that we talked about this, because I know for a fact that we would have probably gone too long off the air without recording any of that. But anyways.
Maybe we should get in the practice of hitting the record button
when
we sit down.
I'm not going to sit here and record all of our conversations. That's weird.
No, it's not. That's how all these big guys do. They have money where people want to listen to your pre and post show. And as much as good conversations that we've had, we'd had 3 or 4 episodes. We could have just popped out there.
You're right. But anyways, if you're looking to get in touch with us or give us a comment, because I'm pretty sure this episode will probably have some people talking. We have a Facebook page /Retrospect Pod where you can go ahead and give us some short form comments and stuff. We also have an email address. And it's getoffendedtogether@gmail.com, where you can give us the more long-winded experiences and stories. I think it would be really interesting to hear from people and what they believe as far as the relationships and stuff like that, and what their thoughts are on it.
And
but,
if they want to send Jason their dating profile,
there
they
you
can
go.
also.
Yeah, right. I'll leave a link in the description. Oh, I'm playing. But anyways, until next week, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. God bless.
Take care.
You're the best. Peace.